What's going on, family? This is Meet the Mickeys. I'm Jamie, and this is my husband.
Roy.
Thank you, forgot his name. Anyways, it is nighttime, but we were having a good discussion, and we thought it would be good to include y'all in the discussion.
Yeah.
Excuse my voice, I'm a little bit under the weather, but I'll make it through.
I told her we didn't have to do it tonight, but concept was fresh, so I wanted to make sure we at least got something, because we kind of dropped the ball on it a little bit just with life, and this is stuff that we need to get y'all to understand where we're at, and we got some stuff that we know can help you. So,
absolutely. And we're always talking and then be like, oh, that'd be good content. And then I'll even write it down, and the video just never happened. So we wanted to kind of jump on it while it was fresh in our minds. So, but yeah, basically, we was just talking about how, like, me being sick and stuff like that, how it's different. Like, if a man gets sick, he's down bad, like the world's ending. I got to take care of him, wait on him, hand and foot, I mean, I don't have to, but like, he just be looking so pitiful,
I do.
I have a nurturing spirit, you know what I mean? So I'm going to, but when I get sick, I'm like, no, it's not that bad. Like, I'll be all right.
Meanwhile, she's laying, dying on the floor, talking about she's not sick. Oh, I can't move, but I'm okay. Don't worry about it. I'll be fine.
Right. Let me get up and make you some meat. But, he was just saying that he never discredits the fact that he does need me for those times, and, I was like, hey, you know what I mean? I'm independent, but I don't have to be, with a man that does what he's supposed to do as a man, So, ladies, we got to let go that I'm a strong, independent Black woman. You know what I mean? Like, that's only going to take you so far. And I feel like a lot of us, as we get older, especially, we kind of get set in our ways. So when a man comes along that wants to fulfill his role as a man, we have a hard time letting go of that control. So when you're single, yeah, you should be independent. Hopefully you have some people around. Luckily, I did have a father in my life. Not every woman is so, fortunate. So, when I didn't have him before he came along, my dad did fulfill a lot of those things. I have a brother as well, an older brother, so I kind of always had that protection. A lot of women have uncles and cousins and, many siblings, stuff like that, so, but when you get somebody and you get with a partner, they fulfill that role. Like, my dad was definitely happy to hand over the reins. You know what I mean? Like,
more than happy.
He reminds me, I'd be, hey, daddy. He'd be like, oh, don't you hey, daddy me. You got a husband. Don't come over here asking, But he's quick to remind me I got a husband. You know what I mean? But I feel like if I didn't have a husband that was going to fulfill his duties, he would still have to step in. But what were you saying about, you said you were talking to somebody the other day, like, you don't really...
Oh, yeah, no. Today, actually, I was talking to one of my guys at work, and we were saying, he told me his fiance was sick and he had to take care of her. And, he was doing everything and anything she needed, because he knows that when he gets sick, he needs that same, he needs that reciprocated. And I was, joking with him. I was telling him, that when I'm sick, I'm down bad. There's no, like, look, y'all, when I'm sick, I'm down bad. It don't matter. I just got a cold. My nose is runny. I'm coughing a little bit, but it's like my whole immune system is shutting down, and it's just a common cold. And I'm losing it. I'm tough as I can be as a guy, but when it comes to sickness, that's why I say y'all's different breeds. Y'all can run through the mill. Y'all can run through the fire. Like, I have a whole total respect for you guys. Even though I run my mouth sometime to you, I got a whole different respect for you, because as a woman, you guys go through a lot.
Yeah.
You guys are very much above us in certain areas, and we are very much above you in certain areas. And God made us this way for a specific reason. He made you guys to be nurturers. He made you women. He made you women to be nurturers. He made you to be the home builder, the one that bring everything in. And, that strong spirit that you have, it's not for no reason.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, he does everything intentional.
Yeah, he's an intentional God.
He's intentional. My voice went back here. But I was just we were talking about that in my discussion in school because we're in this class that I'm in right now is all about the Old Testament. So of course we're going to start at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I was reading about Genesis, and we know the story of Adam and Eve, but just how intentional he was from the beginning of, and how it plays into these roles that we have today. Because you're saying like physically, when you come to get sick, you know what I mean, you're down bad. But if you think about it, that's because it's not familiar to you. We have a whole medical emergency once a month. So for years, like since I was 9, like, I'm 29, getting ready to be 30. I've been dealing with a medical emergency for 20 years. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? And who knows how long it'll be after this, you know what I mean? So it's like, we're equipped in that way. When Adam and Eve sinned, it's funny because like when I was reading this, I was taking note of the fact that God never told Eve not to eat the fruit. He told Adam. And Adam, I used to always think that, okay, well, maybe Adam didn't relay a message. But they never said that Eve wasn't there. Like when Eve was talking to the serpent, she gave it to her husband, who it says who was there. Like he was there the whole time, but she talked to the serpent and she took it. And she says to the serpent, like, well, God said we're not supposed to have this. So that means that she knew. You know what I mean? Yeah. So Adam did do his part in being that covering and letting her know, hey, this is what God told us not to do. Because when God told Adam not to eat that, he hadn't created the woman yet. So Adam had to relay that message. Like when God is downloading something, and this is like where our conversation kind of transpired to say, like, as a woman, because you asked me, was I always like this, or did I have to grow into being able to submit to my husband and knowing my place as a woman? And I told you that I had to grow into that, but it's like, it's funny to see that dynamic from the dawn of time, because like our discussion questions were geared around, what does the Bible narrative of Genesis teach us about how humans interact, how man and woman interact? What does that say about how God is? And so once they both committed that sin, he gave them each different consequences based on their gender. So he said to the woman, your childbirthing will be very painful. Like, so that was our consequence, and this is why, through that we have, these monthly menstruations that's painful, that we're able to be physically strong when it comes to getting sick and unwell, because we're prepared every month for that. And we have been for years. But he said to Adam, you'll work by the sweat of your brow. I'm not supposed to get down and get my hands dirty and go out and provide for the family. They're these single, households where the woman is working 2 or 3 jobs to support her children is not supposed to be.
It's ridiculous.
You know what I mean? So God told Adam, you're going to work by the sweat of your brow. Like nothing that you eat is going to be, just handed to you. You're going to have to work for it.
Right.
So that where y'all have this physical strength, you know what I mean, that we don't have. And then, when it comes to mental and emotional, I said for y'all, like we can go through a lot of emotional pain. A woman can get cheated on 2 and 3 times before she, gets up and leaves. She endures because she loves that man and she believes in him that he can become the man that she, met. And in the same token, y'all get cheated on. I remember my brother. My brother got his little feelings hurt when he was 15. His face was in the couch. I remember this to this day because I was young, but this girl he was talking to, she brought her new boo to church. It was like an Easter Sunday. They had a white on.
Brought to church?
Yes.
Oh, man.
Bro was hurt. He spent the rest of that Easter Sunday in the basement of the church. He said, I'm not even finishing this. I'm not even finishing this program. Like, I'm done. I'm through. When we got home, he cried, had his face in the couch. When I tell you that was the last black girl he messed with,
yo,
like,
look, It was almost a wrap for me too.
Right,
I had some.
So I'm saying like y'all emotionally cannot deal with y'all cannot handle the heat that y'all dish out. Like,
well, see, and I'll say from a guy's perspective, with me, because that's happened to me before, a couple times. But with me, as a man, I would rather just push my emotions down, hide them, and just walk over them,
right,
so that I can get to the next thing, so I can be happy again. And that's not to say that I forgot what happened. That's not to say, yeah, I'll be hurt for a couple days, a couple weeks maybe, but I'm pushing it down, and I know that I can get that same feeling from another woman as long as I can pull myself out of my rut for a second and get to the next. That's not to say, like I said, I forgot about what happened.
Right.
I'm still hurt. I'm still working through things. But because I was able to pull myself out of that one spot, I can get to the next spot and hopefully be happy in this spot, so I don't have to worry about that spot so much.
Right.
But
do you think when you was younger and you was pushing those emotions down instead of dealing with them, because you weren't dealing with your emotions, you weren't able to care for like other people's emotions?
No.
You know what I mean? You weren't able to handle.
No.
Like, if you're not dealing with your emotions, you can't have empathy for other people's emotions. Like, it's funny how that switch works, but like, if I shut down my emotions that I don't understand and empathize with another person who has, their feelings and emotions, so then we start, this is where hurt people comes from.
I was just going to
you know what I mean? Yep. Because when you were younger and you were pushing your emotions away, instead of dealing with them, you weren't aware of, the consequences of hurting other people, or you didn't really.
I didn't care.
You didn't care.
Yeah, didn't care.
So now that you're more in touch with your emotions, do you feel like that helps you to take better care of mine?
For sure. Because if I would have stayed in that same mindset where it's me over everything, it's my emotions first and yours don't matter. As long as I'm being fed, as long as I'm being nurtured, as long as I'm being taken care of, whatever you feel isn't important.
Yeah.
Nah, I would have never made it to this. I would have never made it to this, part of my life.
Yeah.
I would have never had my son and really still been in a relationship with my son, still being able to help grow him up.
Yeah.
Like, no, if I would have stayed in that same mindset, a lot of stuff would have been different.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have made it as far as I am today.
That's true. But yeah, there's just, God was very intentional with what he did. And as it's one thing to know the Bible and to read it and meditate on it and study it, and being a preacher's kid, a lot of these Bible stories are famous, so to say, to a child that grew up in the church. But now being in school, studying in a different way and getting into different opinions on it. Every week we have to do a different discussion. We get into topics, and each student in the class has to give their own, opinion on it. And then we're, to read and comment on it after that. It's like, it's opened my eyes to how intentional God was and what he did and why he did it and what place he put, man and woman in, and how he created humans, just going back through and not knowing it, I know what it's going to say. Like, I've read it so much at the point that I know what it's going to say, but now I'm reading it thinking like, okay, that's why he said what he said. Yeah, that's why he did what he did. Okay, this dot is connecting. You're not reading it to understand it, not just to read it, just to have it be read. Exactly. So one of the things that we're discussing too is how sin was created, and the solution, like, once sin was created and God gave us that free will, he was immediately already working on a solution to that problem. Oh yeah. You know what I mean? Yep. And he was merciful in the fact that instead of just immediately smiting them, and he allowed them to answer for themselves. He didn't even talk to Eve until Adam brought it to his attention that, he got it from her. Like, he already knew what happened, but he asked Adam, first he said, "Where are you?" He knew where he was.
Yeah.
They hid because they knew. He was like, "Who told y'all that y'all was naked?" Like, that is the funniest thing to me.
Right.
Like, and then here comes Adam. Well, this woman that you gave me, you know what I mean? Like, and then he was like, "Woman, like, what you know what I mean?" That, like, whole context of just shows the role of a man and the role of a woman, because he told Adam what they were not to do. And even though Eve was the one that initiated it, she gave it to Adam. He had a role as a man to be like, to remind her of what God promised him and what God told him, that they could have everything else but that, and so he did relay the message, because Eve was able to tell the serpent, what God said, and he was like, "Oh, well, you surely won't die," but God addressed Adam first, like, "Why did you?" Because he had told him, you know what I mean? And Eve, in her curiousness, which a lot of us are, you know what I mean? There's a lot of times that I do things and you're like, "Well, maybe you should have thought about that a little bit better, before you did it." Like, I feel like naturally there's that wisdom that God has put in man to kind of give him that encouragement, to be that person of counsel to his wife. Like, there's a lot of times me growing up seeing my dad really, instill some wisdom into my mom. And I always thought it was because they had a big age gap, but I feel like now being with you and the age gap is a little bit smaller, I feel like that's just what God intended. You know what I mean? He gave y'all certain things. He gave me the spiritual nurturing to be able to speak life into you, be able to encourage you. And us as women have a knack to persuade, you know what I mean? To get you, like, there's all throughout the Bible where, that was David's weakness. That was Samson's weakness. Like, not physical weakness. David could, kill a giant. David can kill bears and lions. Samson had the strength, but it was a woman who led them astray. It was Bathsheba who led David astray, caused him to kill her husband and everything else. You know what I mean? So I feel like that Adam wouldn't have on his own. He knew what God told him to do. He was there before Eve even came into the picture, and he didn't think about tasting that fruit. And even Satan knew to go to her, not him. Because I feel like as women, mentally, we can be persuaded. We're trusting. We think people are our friends. You know what I mean? And that shows even in that story. And, that was one fault of Adam, that he wasn't able to be that wise counsel. He allowed her to persuade him. But that is a weakness that many men in the Bible and in this world today have, where they can be persuaded by a woman. But that's a weakness that we have, that we are trusting, and that we're able to, act without thinking first.
And I also want to add into that, with the Adam and Eve situation, we got to remember that with Adam, he was given the direction first.
Yeah.
God didn't make everything finalized until Adam ate the fruit.
Yeah.
Because everything fell on Adam.
Right.
He was the covering.
Right.
He was the one that had that initial understanding of what not to do and what to do.
Right.
So when Eve was talking to the serpent, and he told her, this is what God said, and she even quoted scripture, like you said, God said, if we eat this, we will die. But the serpent, will you surely die? Will you truly die? Yeah, you will die spiritually.
Right.
But the problem was, whenever she took that fruit and bit it and ate it, and then gave it to Adam, her husband, he should have at that moment said, no, you may have eaten it, but we're not going to keep partaking in this
Right.
because we got to remember what our Father had told us to do. The obedience of eating the disobedience of eating the fruit is what caused the fall of man.
Right.
But it was on Adam. It wasn't on
Right.
Eve.
Right.
Like, yeah, Eve was in there and Adam told her and she knew what it was.
Right.
But because the devil knew that Adam was God's chosen person in this equation to be the head, he went to the quote unquote weaker vessel.
Right.
Not saying that you guys are,
Right.
but the weaker vessel and understanding what God was talking
Right.
about at that point.
Because he could have tempted him before.
Yeah,
but he didn't
exactly.
try.
Yep.
He waited until he got a woman to tempt her, that he knew ultimately she would be able to tempt him.
Right, exactly. So it's like God created man and woman, to be with each other, for each other, but the devil came in and perverted the whole entire create, like what he continues to do today.
He can also use us to be his downfall, because at the end of the day, he can't kill you, but he can persuade you to kill yourself spiritually.
Yes, ma'am.
And
that's what happened in the garden. They died spiritually. They didn't die physically. They died spiritually. God took his hand off them for a minute and let them do their own thing. That's why he cursed them, because they died spiritually. They disobeyed God.
There's also something that I just realized too, because I've always thought that, the fruit that they ate was the tree of knowledge, but there was also a tree of life. And so he removed them from the garden because he didn't want them to have access to the tree of life, because that would make them immortal like him. And it doesn't say if he had plans on making them immortal, but it kind of seems like that was the case. But once they sinned, then he was like, they have knowledge. If they become immortal, they'll become like us. And then that gives them the opportunity, us meaning 3 and 1, that would give them the opportunity to be like God. Okay. And then that's exactly what the devil was trying to do, was to be like God. So he actually gave them mercy of banning them from the garden. He put a cherubim and swords with flames that crossed so they couldn't get back to the path, because he didn't want them to find the tree of life, because they already had eaten from the tree of knowledge, which made them know everything. But he's like, they can't become like us and become the tree of life. So I always, I'm thinking that he was going to allow them to have that access. Like, we were meant to be immortal like God, but once we sinned, we couldn't be. So not only did they kill themselves spiritually, but he also had to stop them from becoming immortal, which, eventually they wasn't going to die that minute, but they die. Like, they stopped the ability to live forever, which meant that they would die eventually. You know what I mean? So he that's what he meant. Like, that not once they ate it, they're just going to drop dead. But he couldn't allow them to have access to the tree of life anymore, which would give them, immortal life. So therefore, they have the ability to die now.
Right. So, and I was going to touch on it. I was hoping you was going to grab around to that. But, when he created Adam, he said, let us make him in our image. Let us make man in our image. Right. So, yeah, God wanted us to live and not die.
Right.
That was the whole intent. But like you said, when they sinned, when they ate when they ate that fruit, that screwed up everything. Yeah. So, yeah, he had to rain down his wrath on humankind, because we couldn't get it right.
Yeah.
We couldn't get it right. But that's something that we need to really understand, guys. Like, we were not meant to die. We were created to prosper. Like, this was the plan since the beginning, but because of the fall of man. And here's something that we need to understand. Who created sin? Where did sin come from? Do you know?
When they ate the fruit?
No.
You mean like the beginning?
Yeah.
Satan.
Right.
Yeah.
So sin came from Satan. God didn't create sin. Sin came from the devil. When he rebelled against God, when he got kicked out of heaven because he thought he could be just like God, he thought he could take God's place. That's where sin came from. And that's why when Adam and Eve were down here after God created everything, he's crept up, and slithered up and talked to God's good creation, which was us, and made us fall, because he enticed us to move in a way that was going to be pushing ourselves away from God rather than going to the Father and being like, hey, God, hold on. This doesn't sound right.
Right.
Can you tell me? Instead of us going to him, he makes things enticing to where
Right.
we can just make that choice. And that was the thing. That's God's free will for our life. Him giving us that free will is what places us in certain situations, certain problems, because we just sometimes can't choose. We can't live without him.
That reminds me when you said free will, because like when he created Adam, he created him in one area.
Mm-hmm.
Eden there was four pathways of water, and Eden was in a garden in the east. He picked Adam up after he made him and put him in the garden named Eden. So when Eve was eating that fruit and she was about to give it to Adam, like if God wanted to, he could have plucked them out, but he gave them free will, told them what they needed to do and what not to do, and he let them have the opportunity to choose. And once they chose wrong, he could have continued to, let them go down a path that would lead to destruction, but he removed them from the garden, did not give them the opportunity to sin again. Right. You know what I mean? Once they did sin, he didn't give them the opportunity to become what Satan was trying to become by trying to be on the same level as God, because they already had the knowledge. So they could have ate from the other tree, which would give them everlasting life and made them like him. But they would have had the sin aspect, so it was tainted. You know what I mean? So he allowed them to have that free will choice, but then he removed them from being able to, make the path of own destruction. But it's like he could make us, live out the roles that we're supposed to live. He could make us follow his commandments. He could stop us from sinning, but he always wanted it to be our choice. Like imagine you're in a relationship, and if you had the power to make a person love you and make a person treat you right, but if you're making them, you'll never know if that person actually really, it
won't be genuine.
Yeah, and he wants that relationship with us, and he wants it to be genuine enough that he would allow us to destruct, everything that he's created. He would allow us to continue to tarnish his name, allow us to continue to, mess up his world just off the hope that we will one day, give in and surrender to him.
Yeah.
But, once he saw the destruction of sin, and then it kept going, later in Genesis, when he has the flood, because people was going their own way. They was creating the Tower of Babel. Like they was doing their thing. He was already in the works of creating a solution to a problem that he already seen coming. You know what I mean? Right. And that's our next discussion. Later in Genesis, we're talking about Adam and the promise that he made to Adam about making the nation. Like Jesus was a descendant of all of these things that were happening.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's awesome to see that, God had these intentions for us. And when they went left, he still was creating a solution so that in the end, we still can have everlasting life with him. It just has to be in a different way because of the choices that were made. So it's also awesome to know that, he still wants us, he still wants to continue out the plan that he made when he started with Adam. But the serpent, crept in. The serpent, the enemy, created sin. But he created the opportunity to sin. Adam was the first one to sin as a human.
As mankind, as the head or federal head, so to speak.
Yeah.
So it's just it's a lot to dive into. I didn't realize we was gonna go this deep. But like
what happens when we start talking.
Yeah.
Like this is us on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Without a camera.
Yeah.
We need to just walk around with GoPros around their neck just in case we get into a deep talk.
Big facts. Big facts. Because it's like, this is stuff that needs to be said. This is stuff that needs to be talked about, because a lot of people, going back to the whole different gender thing, it's God created man for woman, and he created woman for man.
Right.
Like this is the way that God wants it to be. And The reason that a lot of people fall is because we'll go with men, for instance. When we get in our feelings, when we get in our bag, we can't really, a lot of us don't like to face facts, face the truth. Well, we messed up. We misspoke. We stepped out and slept with so and so. We did this. So a lot of times men don't like to take responsibility for their actions.
Adam didn't. He said, God said, why'd you eat that fruit? He said, this woman that you gave me.
Right.
Like,
right.
not only was he blaming Eve, but he's blaming God. Like, you gave me her, so.
Exactly. And, we're rebellious sometimes. Yeah. We're rebellious sometimes. But there again, that's the free will that we have to make that choice to do these things.
Right.
And a lot of the times we'll know right from wrong, but because the wrong way to go about it will make us feel right.
Right.
We won't choose the right way. We won't submit to the right passage that we need to go. So like I said, it's just, one of the things we need to understand is men need women and women need men. Women being on their own, doing all the work, doing all this, doing all that, when you just simply break up with your wife or, your child's mother and you just don't want to do with them no more. You don't want nothing to do with the kids because you feel like you deserve a better life. Men, step up.
Yep.
Stop being little kids. Stop being little babies. Step your game up. If you create a child, look, this child don't come into this world unless it's through your seed.
Right.
So if you're not willing to step up and be a father, don't lay down with a woman that with a womb man that will be able to have your child.
Yeah.
If you ain't grown enough to go ahead and stick around after you commit the action of sleeping with this woman and take care of your children or take care of your woman, if you're not willing to go ahead and step up as a role as the man that God created you to be, because you're still in your feelings, you're still in your immature state, don't lay down with a woman until you get yourself together. Don't bring life into this world that you aren't ready to go ahead and help raise.
Amen to that. I just learned this too. God didn't name Eve a woman. Adam did.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know that. Like, when I knew that God let Adam, like, name the animals and the birds, and he was like, whatever you call them, that's what they call it. You have dominion over the earth and, the things of the earth. When God put Adam to sleep and he created Eve out of his rib, he, said, he sat her down and he was like, this is your helpmate. And he basically told him to name her, and he said, I'll call her woman because she can't, she was made from a man. Like, basically saying, like, she wouldn't live if she wouldn't be alive without a man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it weren't for a man. So it's like, you can't say, oh, well, I don't need a man. I you know what I mean? Like, from the dawn of time, clearly God thought that women and men needed each other because, God couldn't find a suitable helper for Adam, obviously out of any of the animals. So he was like, but like, that was a consideration. He said Adam couldn't find a suitable helper after all the stuff he created. So he was like, let me create a suitable helper for him. And he took one of his ribs because it was from him. So she would be able to know him inwardly. Yep. Like, the ribs are underneath the heart. You know what I mean? So she's going to be able to get to his heart because she was made from the bone that resides under the heart, the breastplate. I'm telling you. That's,
And another thing we need to realize with that too, sorry to interrupt. Another thing we need to realize is, when God created Adam, he breathed life into the nostrils of him. When he created Eve, he formed her.
Right. Yeah.
He formed Eve. Like, he did. Her.
Yeah,
he formed and molded her. Like, he purposely made her the way that that woman is today.
Right.
So he just wanted to add that in there. God was very specific with making man and woman.
Right. But, when he said bye to Adam, he said, when he took him out the garden, he said, from dust you were made and dust you shall return.
Right.
But that's why y'all be out here dirty, because y'all was made.
Yeah, we was messed up from the dawn of time. Thanks, Adam. I appreciate you. You know, thank you. Appreciate you. But no, that's why God is who he is. He's good. He's a good
He's
guy,
sovereign.
you know.
He's definitely
And
sovereign.
he definitely deserves all the glory, honor, and praise. And, just we got to understand that we're not going to be able to get through this life on the path that we're supposed to take unless we submit to Father God and we truly believe in his son for what he did for us on that cross.
Absolutely.